All right. Thanks for coming down today, Isaac, to chat to the team at Prosperity about all the different stuff that you're doing in the Haro and the PR outreach space. Do you want to give the team a little bit of a rundown about how long you've been in the space and what you've been up to over the years? Because I know I've seen your name on Traffic Think Tank and on a lot of different Facebook groups over the years, so you're pretty well known in the space.
Sure. So I've been in SEO since 2014. I mean, back then I was literally working in-house at a locksmith. Basically, I got started in agency. Really, I got started in like agency work around 2015, 2016 time. And since then, I've kind of been joining a lot of a lot of the groups, a lot of joined Traffic Think Tank, SEO Signals, a bunch of those other places. And I guess I really got started in Haro, like really doing it just as a way to find. I think when I first got started as working in an agency, the place was pretty much brand new to SEO, and we had almost no budget for anything link building wise. So like clients were like literally like razor thin margins, so we couldn't even pay for links. So we had to go through any type of way we can kind of come up with a link that wouldn't really cost anything. That was like the best method to do it. So one of the methods that was kind of working was just doing Haro, pretty much pitching Haro for clients and doing that type of stuff. And that seemed to have, been really, just moving the needle for them. So that's really how we got started, and been kind of snowballing that ever since.
So you've been doing Haro for a long time. I noticed that you're also involved in the affiliate SEO space too. I saw Matt Diggity share something that you recently sold a website. Are you able to share some information about that? You don't have to tell us the URL, but just general stuff.
Yeah, that was actually really exciting. So that was actually, and I think my NDA technically expires and ends in around, I think it's either expired already or expires in like a week or two.
Okay.
But yeah, this is actually last year. So this is a pretty big pet project of mine. I have been working on this for almost around 4 or 5 years, and it really started as like a local lead gen site that kind of just exploded into the national scene. So and yeah, and luckily after a while, it was one of those things where it's because it was the guys at the local level weren't able to handle all the leads. We found an affiliate partner who was able to handle it, and it was going pretty well. And I think overall we still we made it, because we were kind of partnered up, it was honestly easier just to make the decision to sell the entire site. And so
Okay, no, nice one, nice work. So do you want to talk through our team, just the process of Haro? Like how do you get some of these juicy links from Haro? I mean, our team's got a little bit of experience with Haro. Like we've been doing pitches on it before. Like we've tested different templates, et cetera, et cetera. We've done it for clients. We've done it for affiliate sites. What do you find is most effective to get Haro links in today's market? I always see you posting on different job like writers groups looking for Haro writers and stuff like that. Is that the easiest way, or are you getting more subject matter experts now to get links? So what can you talk us through, like some of your process? What's the secrets to your success?
yes, excellent. That's an excellent question. And honestly, a big part of that is really kind of honestly, most of the time I really don't actually search writers boards searching for Haro writers. That's actually the way at this point, I think when I first really started, that was kind of the angle I was looking for. But kind of as the industry itself has gotten even more saturated, which is funny because I think back in already when I first started Haro, people were already saying this is one of the most saturated markets. So everything's relative, I suppose. But I think, and so initially the big difference was just, hey, let's hire some writers, they'll just do pitching, and we'll just make it a numbers game. But eventually I think the numbers game just is at this point is so crazy, where if you're just hiring someone who's doing pitching, you're just even doing the numbers game, the percentages are just so low. I think it's been a while since I've done like a little Haro test where I kind of just write a pretty generic pitch and see how many people respond to that. But I think the last one I got over 130 responses. So you have to factor that in, that whenever, even if you have a guy who's running it, you're still maybe on a good number, you may be going to 3 to 5%. So I've been focusing a lot more on the idea, like you said, subject matter experts, where we need to focus on really sort of, you know, target down on which Haros we want to focus on. You know, at this point I tend to avoid like the entire business and finance section like a plague. To me, that used to be the first section I would look because they're the easiest ones to respond to, but that's also the ones that everyone is responding to.
Yeah.
So the odds of me actually getting something from there is pretty nil.
What type of percentage are you talking about in business and finance now? Are we looking at like 1% hit rate, like 100 pitches, you might get one link? Or are you talking like, you know how sometimes you see some sites and they're just like a general site and like they'll just accept every man and his dog? You know, I don't want to name names, but sometimes you see those Haro lists where you get a site and there's like 200 people on the list, and then you think, this is definitely going to be.
We're thinking of the same site, and that was the number I was going to go to also. So we're definitely thinking of the same one. So in truth, there's a few factors, and this kind of gets into like, I'd say one of the other bigger factors that, you know, not everyone kind of thinks about, and that kind of also depends on the person that's pitching. That's either that's pitching or you're pitching ads, because a lot of people do ghostwriting. So like I've actually had cases where we actually kind of maybe focus on some general things, but the person itself had enough sort of notoriety. Like the person in this case actually had a book and like a little podcast and stuff like that. So in that case, the percentage actually kind of shot up a little bit, because a lot of times, like you can ask, you know, a lot of, you know, journalists or people who use that, one thing they do, they tend to do a little bit of due diligence on the person. And if they see there's like a little bit of value, like an little extra value, they have that kind of like little profile or something like that shoots up, that'll definitely increase it. And I actually had a pretty decent success with someone who actually had a little bit of a name there. But like other than that, you're probably looking at one. I'd say, you know, I'd be optimistic saying probably around 3%.
Okay, yeah, no, that's interesting to hear. How important do you think having credentials are? I was talking to a buddy recently, and he said that he was working with a Google employee to actually do Haro pitches and was getting some good success. But I mean, do you think like if you're an author of a book or if you're someone influential, that's really going to move the needle, and your success ratio is going to go from 3% up to 33%, for example? Like, it sounds like that's what you're testing more now, trying to find people that are someone who's got a name, you know?
So I think it's a little more than that, where, I mean, obviously having a name itself is definitely helpful. But to me, what like the thing I tend to focus on now are how does that kind of have a requirement. So, you know, so you on the bottom, typically, let's say a financial one, you know, it's tax season right now in the US. So there's a lot of tax and, you know, financial related questions going on right now. So there's kind of different levels of that. So on one hand, you'll have the, you know, your typical, you know, hey, as a business owner, what are you, you know, what type of deductibles are you covering this season? And that's going to get tons of, because everyone's a business owner, everyone's going to be able to respond to that. And then you have the similar ones that like say, hey, what as an accountant or CPA or something like that, what's the craziest deduction, or what type of tips do you have there? And they have very specifically, we'll have a requirement, we need a CPA, we need someone with a financial credential. So to me, the magical words to look out for, hey, these people, they're looking for credentialed people. And if you can't show your credentials, then they're not going to be quoting you at all. And so all of a sudden, you're knocking your competition level goes down from 130 down to 30. So the percentage of the possibility of you getting chosen is much, much higher.
Yeah. So basically what you're looking for is someone who's a CPA or someone who's a doctor or someone who has those credentials that they can then go out to Haro and start pitching on the client's behalf, basically utilizing their credentials.
That's exactly it.
Okay. What sections do you feel are getting the best success ratios at the moment? I know you said business and finance is not great at all at the moment, and we've experienced that too. But
I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are seeing success there. It's just I wouldn't rely on it.
Yeah, exactly. But like, what other sections you feel like are, I wouldn't say easier, but you're going to get a better strike rate? What other sections are you seeing like that?
So surprisingly, I'd say general and lifestyle and fitness are both pretty solid, actually. I think lifestyle and fitness is kind of like, you tend to have a pretty good mix. Like you're looking at of like just general medical and other type of experts and stuff like that. That is the type of stuff that I'm looking for. So a lot of people tend to kind of just like put their question there. And even general itself, they kind of have a lot of that general type stuff that even though the title itself is general, there's still a lot of people who are, looking for someone who has any sort of experience in this area.
No, good to hear. I mean, like, this is a bit of a controversial question, but what do you feel the success ratio of Haro links are in today's market? I mean, do you still feel that Haro links are actually attributing to SEO growth? Or do you feel like that's only a small percentage of those links where the harder to get ones versus the Haro links where it's like the free for all, where they have 200 different people mentioned? Like, have you tested like success of Haro links? Like if you go out and you build 100 Haro links for a site, have you tested the success off the back of those links? Or do you feel like it's more a contributing factor with like trust and things like that?
So that's a really good question. It's really hard to say. I mean, obviously on a gut level, I probably want to say the one with 200 links is not doing that great.
Yeah.
But I would say, so around a year ago, I actually built, kind of ran a few tests just with Haro just to see what we can do. And actually built up one site pretty much using just Haro links, just to see what would kind of happen. I mean, at this point, and this is a much more general site, we weren't using much, we weren't focusing on like using a specific expert. We did have a guy who had some stuff behind him, and we were able to get a lot of really good links. The site itself, to date, we are pretty much number one in the overall niche. We haven't really been hit too hard by any major penalties, so it's done pretty well. And a decent amount of these links were on a decent amount of those roundup things, so they were kind of good. I mean, or at least or to be fair, we probably weren't that negatively affected by them. It's hard to sort of quantify the value. I would say though, on a single link by link basis, one of the reasons why I like to focus on experts, that because if you focus on a specific expertise, that means you're kind of staying within your niche. If you're a pet company and we're able to get you links on pet related websites, that's got to be good for you. Aside from just the website itself, we're getting on the articles itself are literally about your niche. So they're definitely got to be a lot better for you.
How important do you think relevancy is with link acquisition? I've always been a big fan of relevancy for like the last 15 years of links, like get for a pet's website, getting links on pet sites or sub niche relevant. But I mean, how important do you think relevancy is with link acquisition?
I mean, I would say it's probably one of the most important things. Like it's aside from just like itself from like from a Google standpoint, honestly, from a client standpoint, if you're trying to build links for clients and you can point that, hey, not only did I get you a good link, a solid link on a high, and this is if the client knows what DR is, a high DR site. It's also an industry site. This is literally a site that talks about your type of clients. It makes the whole process so much easier.
Okay, no, that's good to hear. Back to the Haro pitches. What type of title do you feel gets the most CTR for like a pitch? So say I'm pumping out 100 Haro pitches, like in your experience, what type of title is going to get the best results? Like, would you just say, I'm a CPA, here's my answer, or like that's for one of the finance pitches, or have you tested different variations of email titles to stand out from the flood of, like you said, like when you done tests, like 130 people are applying. What do you feel in sense of titles is getting the best results?
That's a great question.
That's
I would
important.
Probably say. So yeah, I mean, especially if you're getting flooded with things. I mean, a lot of it kind of comes down to I always like to think about like what the journalist is sort of seeing on their end, And I always encourage people, if you're doing Haro, just send your own response, just to get the experience, just to understand what a journalist is going to be going through, and sort of see it on their end. And one thing, and aside from that, you also get a little bit of competitive intelligence. You get to kind of see what other people are using in terms of their titles. Lets you kind of broaden what you're seeing. In general, I do happen to like from a formula standpoint, I tend to be pretty basic. I like to kind of just include number one, like I tend to see that like a lot of journalists just when they get so many things, they tend to just like they'll either start or save specific responses, just to save for future use. So you kind of want to, I like to put like just a quick Haro response in the title. That way they can just easily file that. and keep that around. I also, like you said, I also kind of like to include, if we're using it, if there's an expert or something like that, just saying, hey, this is a CPA. That way they can, a CPA response. That way they can
Okay.
clearly say, yeah, this guy's already pretty good. We got a CPA over here. I'm going to follow that guy. I may not be able to quickly read his response right now, but I'm definitely going to follow that one and wait for later.
Yeah. Have you tested using doctors to do Haro pitches, or like how did you go about that? Did you hire the doctor, or is it a doctor in another country? That I see a lot of people using doctors in Asia to do pitches and for EAT factors and things like that in different niches that we operate in. Is that kind of what you did, or did you hire a doctor in the US? Like how'd you go about it?
So I've tested out. I've definitely tested out. I'd say both of those. I have tested out just trying, doctors in Asia. It's honestly it's worked kind of on and off. A bit of a challenge is just in general, like, number one, especially when it comes to, and I notice this, like, when it comes to any sort of heavily credentialed industry, journalists do the research. They will check up on the source. They will make sure that the source itself is valid. And it tends to be that if you are getting someone who's like, from from India or something like that, they will likely know that, and that will kind of be a strike against you in terms of getting chosen. You might still get chosen, but they're going to see, look, we probably want to have someone from either, if they're a U.S. place, probably someone from the U.S. So they tend to be, it may be kind of cheaper on one hand, but the odds are you're just going to see a lot less results. It's also the general just language barrier. A lot of them are really great at, they are really able to write. There's that kind of punchiness factor that, a lot of the really good Haros tend to, like, I like to say, like, in terms of Haro, there are really two different types of Haros. There's the Haro there's the right for me ones. These are the ones that are just like, hey, they're basically doing a content curation. We're going to curate 30 responses, put in an article, and call it a day. And then there's, like, I'd say the more traditional journalist ones, where it's like, we have our article and we just kind of want to throw in a few quotes. So let's kind of get those. And because of when you're working with, let's say, a doctor or something like that, that tends to be, by and large, most of those responses tend to be from the latter, where they kind of want to get a few quotes. You need to be a lot punchier, and you need to kind of be talking more from experience, and you kind of don't see that.
Exactly. No, I think that's some good tips. In terms of the template itself, like, are you just going for like a really punchy template, like, here's the answer, here's my credentials and a photo, and like a link to my, like, LinkedIn, my wherever else, my YouTube channel, like.
Are you in my inbox?
Hey?
Are you in my inbox?
Am I in your what?
That's basically what we're doing. No, we basically have it. Hi, I'm blah blah blah. I guess this is my credential. Here's my response to you. Here's my bio. Here's my credentials on the bottom. All that, again, you get to see that. But yeah, that's basically it.
No, like, the thing is that we've done Haro in the past, so I've tested a lot of different stuff, like, over the years. It's just, yeah, you need I feel like it is getting harder. You're right. Every man and his dog is now doing Haro, and I feel like you're right. You really need, like, specialization to stand out. So crucial. I mean, are you using any other sources for journalists, like, apart from just Haro? Are you hitting other sites like Twitter, where they do the journo call out hashtag, or using SourceBottle, which is like an Australian/US one, but they don't have a lot of stuff on there usually? What other sites are you hitting and you're seeing good success with?
I really wish I had a great answer for you, but honestly, I have tested out, like, SourceBottle and a few of those other ones, but, like, just numbers wise, like, at the end of the day, I prefer to keep it nice and simple, especially when working with, if we're working with other people and happen to have to run through 3 or 4 or 5 different potential outlets just to find stuff. It just doesn't tend to work. I think most of the time, like, I have seen some success with SourceBottle, but honestly, the quality was never really that great. Like, in Haro, the joke, the industry standard, quote unquote, is like, DR50 is kind of what you aim for. In SourceBottle, it tends to be a lot lower. Like, you tend not to just see a lot of really high quality sites there.
Yeah,
at least to be fair, it's been a long time since I used SourceBottle. It could very well be that they've gotten a lot better. So
No,
My apologies if Source
I
Bottle is watching this in there.
no. Well, Source Bottle, I believe, is Australian headquartered
Mhm.
company because I think I've paid to do a call out on there. I think you actually have to pay to do call outs on
Mhm.
there, and you do get people, but it's not as big as Harrow. But here's another question. This is maybe a bit more of a naughty question, but have you ever seen many people actually building a site using
Mm.
Harrow? Like, for example, like they'll say, I'm looking for the best things to do in Baltimore for my article, and then they get like 50 people apply to build that landing page, and then the next week they're like, I'm looking for 50 best things to do in New York, and then I'm looking for 50 best things to do in Miami, and like the same site is building like 50 to 100 pieces of content just via like getting Harrow responses. And
Mhm.
I've seen some shady stuff like that, but have you seen that too?
It's funny. So one thing I did notice, I haven't seen that example. I did see one person who was trying to basically build out just a literal a local influencer database where they would basically be, they were trying to build out, hey, we're trying to keep, build a roundup of like, all the Baltimore, top Baltimore bloggers. And the next day it was like, well, looking for the top Philadelphia bloggers. So like really just trying to just like, hey, let's just get all our influencers out nice and easy. And I don't know if it was successful. I'm very curious if that actually kind of worked out and the person was able to kind of just build out a list of like, in my head, like this could be genius. This guy could just have, built out an entire influencer network for all these local places. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like I guess you'd have to have a good hook to get people involved. Like you'd have to have
Mhm.
an authoritative site, like high DR site, and like to even try something like that. But no, it could be worth testing. I mean, in the same sense, are you seeing more and more people asking for money when you do a
Mhm.
Harry pitch? Like you pitch to a site and they're like, oh, we love your answer, but it's going to cost you 200 USD to get featured in this article.
Mhm.
I'm seeing more and more stuff like that. I know that's kind of against their terms and
Mhm.
conditions, but yeah, I guess people just do whatever.
So I haven't seen that in a while. It's been a while. There was this one person, I think, specifically that was like doing that type of thing, and like they were like, they were specifically trying to charge money for that. A more common thing I see is either the no follow one, where it's like, hey, oh yeah, it's a no follow link, but if you want to, and I'm going to drive people crazy, a do follow link where you're going to, we're either going to need a reciprocal link on your site, or you're going to have to join our network to do that type of thing, which is on it kind of drives me crazy when people do that.
Yeah, I guess they know the value of links, and then
Mhm.
they try to swindle you for some cash or whatever else. Like, no, I see that a lot. Yeah, I mean, that's all the questions from my end, but I mean, I bring the team in now. If anyone from the team has got a curly question for you, I'm sure they're going to ask that. Does anyone have a question for Isaac? Everyone's a bit quiet. Maybe I've already asked all the questions. Nick, you got any question? I know you've done a lot of Harrow. Nick's actually based
Yeah,
in US.
I think you pretty much asked the question that I was gonna ask because um I was just wondering about the efficacy of the links because after doing Haro for a while, it was I didn't really see much improvement, but it could be niche specific, it could be a lot of different things, but I don't know, in my experience, it was kind of difficult. Um I had, for example, I had somebody with credentials. It was like a nutritionist, and she was doing really well. Like I think she got me like 20 or 25 links, but I don't know. I just didn't see the impact of those.
Hmm.
It was for an affiliate site, so
Mhm.
I don't know. It could be different for each niche, but
I
yeah, I
mean,
was
yeah, nutrition is a really is definitely a really interesting niche. Like I worked also with like with nutritionists in that area. I'd say the one challenge when it comes to a lot of the nutrition links is that a lot of the big players, I think in nutrition you have like Eat This and She Finds are two of the biggest players, and they basically recently start a few months ago started no following every single one of their links,
oh
which really
really?
sucks.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sucks.
So like, and I've told people, I'm like, look, I like, it's great for like, getting them out, but like do one or two of them. Don't like, because like a lot of these writers are very happy to keep quoting you. But I'm like, let's focus on other sites that can actually get us like, a regular link.
Right. Makes sense.
Is there anything you do when you get a placement, but a site doesn't link to you? Do you have like a follow-up method that you try and secure a link with?
That's a great question. So yes, the answer is yes. So we do have a sort of so the typical, let's talk about that sort of like, I'd say the 3 different types of, let's call unlinked mentions that we'll get. Obviously, number 1 is where you have literally no mention. It's just either the person's name and that's about it. Option 2 is where, and this happens when you are working with, people who have, if you're working with a freelancer or something like that, is the attribution is incorrect. So, if they've worked with multiple sites, the writer may just get the site wrong. They'll link to an incorrect site. Or if possible, sometimes even the writer's personal site, and you yourself will not get the link. And then finally, and this is also a very frustrating one, when the site links to the writer's personal bio page, like their LinkedIn page or Instagram page.
Right.
So all those 3 drive me crazy because, hey, we really want to get the link. So I tend to basically, depending on which of those 3 things, I either try to, and I usually sort of do this in stages. Number 1, I try to reach out directly to the writer. If the writer has been in contact with us, that's usually the best case scenario, where I'm like, hey, I can literally just respond to their latest message. Like if they send us the link, we can just respond, hey, thanks so much. Would you mind just like updating the link? If we didn't get that, we'll still search out the writer, see if they can help out. If they don't respond, you just try responding, sending it like once or twice, and then I'll try sending it over to the actual website itself, seeing if one of their editors or something like that might be able to help us out.
Sure. Yeah, it's, I guess one of the things that's kind of put me off Haro is just getting good placements but no links, and they're just like, oh, it's our editorial policy, we're not going to link back. That's happened a few times. It's frustrating.
I think I know which site you're talking about. So that's very that toes that line.
The worst part is when they have a call out and they want you to pretty much write their entire post for them, and then they take your stuff and they use it, and then they give you a no-follow link.
It's like I kind of occasionally rant about this, where I'm like, it's at the end of the day, come on, like let's all be like, I kind of just want to have like a talk with them, like, come on guys, we all know what we're doing here, right? We're all SEOs and we're here to help you, and you know why we're doing this. We're not doing this so you can just like mention it, quickly mention us in the article. We want a link. That's what we're here for. That's what we're doing this for. And if we don't get it, we're not going to be happy. Come on. Like I kind of feel like it's supposed to be the unwritten rule about Haro. Like if you're using it, you gotta pony up the link.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of Haro swindlers though. A lot of journalists swindle people.
It might make a Netflix documentary about that, the Tinder swindler and then the Haro swindler. Someone who builds like a massive content site, swindling people via Haro.
I'm still waiting for that good SEO doc, that really good Netflix show that really puts SEO on the map. Like they had that recent, I don't think it was Netflix, they had that recent show with like NASCAR, I think, that like really got everyone excited about it. Really diving into the personal stories. So I'm really waiting for the SEO version of that.
Exactly, like the Queen's Gambit in chess. Everybody wanted to play chess for about 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting. I don't know how they'd do it. It'd have to be like affiliate SEO, but I feel like they'd make it like they'd bring the dark side of it, like there'd be like the dark side of SEO, like the affiliate and like someone driving around a Ferrari, and I don't know, like I just get the vibe that that's how they'd spin it. I don't think that
there's a lot of angles you can go with. You can go with the kind of like dark humor of like of Silicon Valley and going with that, which I can definitely see that working. You can also go for like a Hell's Kitchen type situation where you're like just have like some guy else like going into an agency like yelling at everyone about fixing everything up. I can also see that working also. So
you should be a screenwriter, Isaac. You could have a next multi-million-dollar show on the way with these ideas. But I mean, back to the Haro stuff, like just a few more thoughts with that. Like when you're hiring these like a doctor or a nutritionist or a CPA, like where are you looking for these people? Are you posting a job on like Craigslist, or you posting a job on like a Facebook group related to these professionals? How are you sourcing those heavy hitters in their industry, and how are you paying them too? Like, are you giving them like bonuses for links and paying them hourly rate? Because I guess a doctor's going to want big dollars.
Oh yeah. So yeah, they definitely do. That's a really good question. Yeah. So I've been testing out like I have tried Craigslist just to see if we can get anyone. I wasn't super successful to get a few potential people with that. A lot of it kind of just ends up being where you just kind of have to almost like just go for volume. Facebook groups have been pretty good, solid. Focusing on like some like niche Facebook groups. A lot of these ones are some like these like kind of industry groups that's you can kind of join. A lot of them are potentially looking for side work or something like that. If you're gonna do that, I recommend kind of reaching out to the admin first before pitching your thing, because you will get banned if you don't. Honestly, Upwork or Collabtree are also pretty decent. Collabtree a little bit less so. Like I was kind of optimistic about them around. If you asked me around a year and a half ago, I would have been very, very excited to use them. But honestly, I just haven't seen them, like the quality of professional that they've been able to sort of get is just not really there. So honestly, Upwork has some pretty decent people as well. So don't forget about them.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think another thing I wanted to ask is like when you're like looking through the list of sites and whatnot, like what software are you using? I know there's all new software on the market, Jolly SEO, they released that tool, and are you making use of much of that software at the moment? Like, do you have a favorite one that you recommend everyone should be using for doing these pitches?
I'm like debating whether I should give them, if we should be giving them a free pitch or not. But I mean, so I no, I actually, so link sourcery is pretty solid in terms of like if you're kind of going through it. The guys behind it are very active in developing it, and I guess we could give them a pitch. They're actually doing a pretty good lifetime deal right now. You can check them out. Another interesting tool like that's, I'm not sure from a development side, they're much more under the radar, but they're pretty solid. If I've tried out, it's called Headcom. I think Headcom AI. They have an interesting, from a speed perspective, it's really good in terms of like finding good pages and stuff like that. They have some really solid like searching abilities. They also have like they try to have like an AI generator they invested a decent amount in just creating like AI generator responses, which I think is a total waste of time, at least from a development standpoint. Like I do not like that direction that they chose to go in there. Like to me, like why would like, it's like if I'm seeing more and more a higher and higher need for quality, in fact, you're going for let's kind of AI generate responses to questions, is probably not the area I want to necessarily move in. So I'm not super excited about that. But honestly, just kind of going through like at the end of the day, it's not that complex in terms of like going through the actual responses. And I honestly, more often than not, I'm just looking at a Gmail account and pressing Control F to flip through it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I've seen headcom.ai. I heard it on another podcast and I checked it out. And yeah, I was a bit suspect as well, like doing like automated pitches and stuff like that. I just didn't feel like that would work for like a tier 1 publication. Maybe for like those sites that just accept everyone's pitch, like 100%. Like you could spin something up in Jasper and potentially give it to them, but for like for tier 1, I feel like you really need like credentials, you need a solid pitch, and like Nick and Matt was saying,
if you're it's not, even if you get accepted, it's not going to be on any of the good sites.
Yeah, 100%. And it's
I would honestly love to see on one it's like churn and burn sites, what someone could do if you really just try to put this to the max. You really like you build up a system using that, and you actually respond to every single and you're able to basically, because of this, able to almost respond to every single Haro query and see what you can do after a month and see how that goes. I would be fascinated if someone could do that.
I mean, that could be a good test, like you said, with that site that you started from scratch. Like if someone started from scratch and just used a tool like that and just completely did AI Haro pitches, completely did AI content, completely just made the whole site like an AI site. I mean, I've seen people doing some tests like that, but not like a fully blown, like all in the AI super test, like that could be a good one. That could be a freaking Netflix show on itself, how AI is taking over websites, like Haro pictures, content, pictures on the website, all AI generated, like, yeah, it could be pretty crazy. So could be a good test. Maybe we'll have to test that in-house. Maybe, but I don't know. It's one of those things. Are you playing around with any AI content for pictures and stuff like that? Or it sounds like you're going fully
not
100%.
really. Not really. I think I'm much more like, I mean, my main thing is sort of like, I have my, from a template standpoint, at the end of the day, responses aren't long enough. And, at the end of the day, it's much more about getting them punchier than just writing generic content. So like this actually happened today, and a pretty unique thing happened with, I was actually testing out a new a writer for one of my sites, and they actually got banned. I've never had this happen before. We actually, so she actually received an email showing that like how it said, like, we saw that, we got a report that you basically plagiarized from a Healthline article, and we have banned your account. Which, like, I've literally I've never ever seen that happen before. That they did that.
Are you using like Copyscape API to check pictures, or that's not in your process at the moment?
I mean, that's not usually my process. So
okay, I guess you're just trusting the writers, essentially.
Yeah. So I mean,
yeah. No, like it can happen. Like you really have to vet writers, and sometimes it's better to have writers in house, just because like you can trust them more. Like external writers and stuff, sometimes there can be some shenanigans. And I think every business has seen that. But do you use multiple Haro accounts, like just to safeguard something like that happening? Like if you do have a third party that's working with you and your account gets banned, do you have multiple accounts on the go to circumvent something like that happening?
I mean, it's really easy to create a new Haro account.
Yeah.
So it's not usually a big deal. But like, I mean, for every single site I have a complete separate Haro account. I create, structure-wise, I'm going to create a new Haro account for every single project I'm working on.
Yeah, it's not hard to do it, like new email, bang, you're in, But it's interesting to see that they're monitoring that type of thing, like that writer, the people that were doing that site will probably run the article through Copyscape, and then that's probably how they pick it up, like, or one of those other like duplicate plagiarism tools, but it's interesting to hear that they're checking that now. So I guess that's going to put a lot of people on notice. You got to have these unique answers in your content. Are you doing any other types of digital PR stuff, Isaac, apart from the Haro stuff, or are you solely Haro only? Are you playing around with any other types of pitches, like reactive PR? Are you playing around with that type of stuff? Are you seeing results with that?
So nothing specific with like pitches, but we are like, I am also like sort of experimenting, this kind of using like sort of utilizing other like experts in other ways, either doing some more authority type guest posting, working on some like, I guess if you're able to get these people quoted on big sites, the odds are you can also help them get, featured on them as writers. So doing stuff like that and kind of experimenting on ways to kind of make that work.
Okay, so like you're reaching out to like Healthline and saying, I've got a doctor that is an expert in this area, would love to write an article on this, something different like that.
No, yeah, that's basically it.
I've seen pictures like that where someone's like, we've got a TV personality that would love to write for your site. But it is different, it's not your run-of-the-mill pitch, where you've got like a unique angle. And if you've got a media personality that is pitching for a site, it could be a good hook,
Yeah, that's kind of like the interesting thing. Like my big question, like one of the challenges that like when trying this thing out is when like is that like when you're trying to sort of reach out as someone like let's say I'm offering up like an expert. So we have two options in terms of outreach. I can either have like the expert itself reaching out, like, hey, my name is Barry. I'm this is this. I have this in this credential. I would love to write about this. Which the odds are will be pretty efficient in terms. Like I would imagine from an acceptance standpoint, you have a much higher chance of being accepted than, if Isaac is sending it out, hey, I want to, see if we have this professional here who can do that. So, but the downside is that like you also potentially, at the end of the day, all relationships with with writers and stuff like that are temporary at best. So do you want to sort of potentially lose that relationship? Once that's done, then you have to kind of rebuild that one again. So pros and cons.
It makes sense. But yeah, I mean, do you have any final tips for our team, Isaac? Anything that you'd advise for people doing Haro in 2022 and beyond, apart from what you've already mentioned? Like any silver lining bullets that we haven't talked about today? Anything you can think of?
So I guess the one thing I would think of, and this kind of goes back to a lot of the unlinked mentions and stuff, where I would recommend always setting up alerts for if for what you're doing, because especially if you're not if you're not tracking it, you're gonna get a lot of opportunities where you're missing out on a link or something like that. So, and if you just rely on a backlink check or to search for results, you're going to be missing on a lot of potential opportunities to get them back. So use Google Alerts, set up those tabs, set up those things. Occasionally check it once a month, maybe check. And usually the sort of formula I like to do is the person's name plus whatever brand, or maybe even just a person's name if it's uncommon enough, and just do a search back for the previous month. Check for any sort of mentions and see what comes up.
That's a great tactic. I think that's the thing. A lot of people don't even look for the unlinked mentions and things like that. It can be an easy win if you're able to get the link, but sometimes you deal with those editorial standards that you can't bypass. So it's a tricky one, but I guess that's part of the job. You're not going to get every link that you pitch, and the success ratio can be quite small. But no, I mean, thank you for coming on today, Isaac, to chat to the team and talk about what you're up to. Where can people reach out to you if they want to get some Haro help or just chat to you in general about what you're up to?
I mean, you can find me. I'm pretty active on social media. I'm on, you can find me on Traffic Think Tank. Honestly, just reaching out to send me a ping on LinkedIn. Always happy to respond to it. Actually, had a really interesting thing. Someone actually reached out and just asked me to sort of help out with just do some consulting in terms of just helping them set up a campaign. Let's vet some writers and stuff like that. So always happy to chat and see if I can just help you succeed in your Haro campaigns. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I think it's Isaac Hammelburger on LinkedIn or anything like that.
No, I really appreciate your time today.
Or just post Haro and I have alerts set out. I'll probably find
it. No, really appreciate your time today, Isaac, and thank you for your wisdom around Haro. Yeah, we'll be chatting to you if we need any expert tips. All right.
All right, Dalton. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you for your time. I'll